Well, good morning, one and all. Those of us joining here on Monumental Sports Network and, of course, on Monumental Plus app, we welcome you into the new introductory press conference for the new leadership of your Washington Mystics. Wes Hall alongside our Mystics sideline reporter, Meg McDonald. Meg, it is a new day for this organization. It is a great time to be a Mystics fan and, of course, a part of Monumental basketball. Your thoughts on what we're expecting to hear today and just the future of Mystics basketball?
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah.
This is just the best. And the fact that everyone got here on a wintry Wednesday morning, we are thrilled. But this really is a new era of Mystics basketball with the introduction of Sydney Johnson, who brings nearly 30 years of coaching experience back to the district. Of course, he was at Georgetown a long time ago, and it's exciting to bring him back. And then Jamila Wideman, the GM. Talk about a well-rounded individual with a very extensive, unique background. Cannot wait to get their thoughts on the future of the Washington Mystics.
I, too, am excited about this. So much time between now and we get back on the court. This is going to be a great day to hear their thoughts and their vision for what's going to happen on this side of the organization. So right now, we're going to head over to the podium with our Mystics sideline caller, Megan McPeak.
Thank you so much, Wes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here at District E, part of a monumental announcement here with the Washington Mystics. A special shout out to our Club 52 members who are in the house this morning, as well to all the media and all of you who have joined us here this morning. An exciting day for everyone, especially the Washington Mystics, as they step into an official new era of Mystics basketball. Joining President of Monumental Basketball, Michael Winger, Mystics General Manager, Jamila Wideman, and Mystics Head Coach, Sydney Johnson. I know it's an exciting day for everybody at this time. I'd like to turn it over to Michael for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Megan. Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for being here today to help us introduce Jamila and Sydney and to celebrate a new beginning for the Washington Mystics. First, a heartfelt thank you to our fans who passionately support us and the league and help make us a courageous, influential, and addictive team. We love playing basketball, but we especially love playing basketball for them. Secondly, a personal thank you to our athletes and our staff who showed tremendous patience, grace, and trust as we made a difficult decision and embarked on a process of identifying two new leaders to help usher the Mystics into the future. Whether overseas in the States or locally, our players were so supportive and engaged throughout this process, and I'm grateful to them for that. Additionally, John Thompson III and our colleague Don Wolf, they were instrumental in helping us to identify and recruit these two people up here, and I'm very, very thankful for their help. Third, an enormously special thank you, of course, to our chairman and owner, Ted Leonsis, for supporting us in pursuing our vision for the Mystics and for believing in us as stewards of an incredibly important team and Washington, D.C. treasure. We wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be in this pivotal moment without his invitation and his support. We're extremely grateful to him. Thank you to Ted's partners as well, specifically, where is she? Specifically Sheila Johnson and Michelle Freeman for their unwavering support of the Mystics and powerful advocacy of women's professional sports. Thank you. And finally, thank you to Jamila, Sydney, and their families for trusting us and joining us on this undefinable and unpredictable journey, for wanting to be part of the Mystics and Monumental basketball, and for trusting us with this part of your life and your careers. We are extremely grateful that you're here and look forward to the future together. When we decided to undertake the process of identifying new leadership for the Mystics, we knew the pool of candidates would be capable, captivating, and make our decision difficult, if not contentious. To start, we recommitted ourselves to our organizational principles that help us define our behaviors and our decision-making. Those are togetherness, accountability, competitiveness, excellence, and joy. Those would be the first filters through which we would examine our candidates and the people that we would recruit. Secondly, we had to forecast what we believe will power the next decade of women's professional sports, the WNBA and the Washington Mystics. Knowing who we are, of course, is very important, but knowing who we want to be and how to become that is imperative. The how is what helped drive our decision-making. We determined that we would over-index happily on a few key things. The first was extreme intelligence. The second was a depth of connectivity with professional athletes as performers, as people, as daughters, as partners, as moms. And the third was an intimate knowledge of the why and how to impact and develop the women behind the jerseys. It sounds a little altruistic, and for us it is. Between the lines, we care about athleticism, skill, competitiveness, timing, and force. These are the things that we think win basketball games. But our athletes spend 90% of their lives outside the lines, and that 90% has an enormous impact on the passion and the quality of the time that they spend, the 10% between the lines. And that means a few things for us. First, it reinforces our belief in the quality of inputs and the totality of the person-player experience. We feel that we are all a product of our substances, information, and the environments that we consume. We believe athletes are the exact same. We feel it is our job to maximize the quality of their lives during the 90% to the extent they allow, which will translate for them into on-court performance for which they can be very proud. Second, we want our athletes to think of themselves as more than just athletes, more than wins and losses, more than data that shows up on a box score. They are critiqued and analyzed in a very visible way on a nearly daily basis. Some of them are kids, some of them have kids, and all of them are vulnerable. We want to help them understand that their day job does not define who they are, and that they know they're not just players to us. And third, relatedly, while we are of course a professional basketball team and our job is to win basketball games and provide an enjoyable product for our fans, we feel very strongly that we are also an institution of propulsion and virtue. This means providing an environment and an invitation for our athletes to learn more about themselves, their capabilities, their importance in the world, and to harness and express their identities beyond just being special athletes. And we would like for them to use this platform to improve the world one moment at a time. With this as the backdrop, I wanted two people, our two most important organizational leaders, who understood the 90-10 ratio and what to do with that 90% to truly honor those athletes and our fans. And both Jamila and Sydney have demonstrated throughout their careers, and certainly in the conversations we had with them, that they are in fact precisely the two people that we were looking for. Thank you both for appreciating who we want to become and for committing to this lofty endeavor with us.
Thank you, Michael. I would not be remiss, as someone who enjoys fashion, to give you all a shout out on the coordination this morning. Very nice. Jamila, first, welcome to DC. And for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, as the Mystics' new general manager, Jamila Wideman.
Thank you very much for that welcome, and thank you very much, Michael, for that foundation and statement. I think about where we have been, where we're looking to be. I could not be more thrilled to be in a position of leadership and to be a part of what will be the Mystics next, a part of what will be the Monumental next. Let me start with just an expression of tremendous gratitude. And y'all can sit back because there's a lot of gratitude to share in this moment. And I would start with Ted and the ownership group, who I first became aware of as a player over 25 years ago. And just want to thank Ted and the group for this opportunity, and also for the longstanding commitment to the game and to this team. And to Sheila, thank you so much for your leadership and your galvanizing the Mystics as well. To Club 52, who I think might be in the house, representative of all our fans, just want to express gratitude to that incredible group. And I would also say, I want to express gratitude to you all who were gathered in the room today as the storytellers of this game. I haven't met all of you yet. I look forward to doing it. I'm sure many of you have been on the journey of covering women's basketball, the WNBA, this team for a long time. Some of you may be stepping into this space more recently. We all welcome you to it. But the reality is, without the storytelling, without animating some of the values that Michael just spoke to, and I think most importantly, animating the folks who are at the center of the game, the players, as people, just simply in their humanity, in their passion, in the things that they dream about. You all are, in many ways, the folks that let that have air and breathe and live. So thank you for being on that journey with us, and just consider this a formal invitation to press on into what's next. And I would also like to thank The people that I mentioned are at the center of the game, the players, beginning with our Mystics players, and also reaching back into the players who have been, from the beginning of this league, just a persistent force to push this game forward. I stand on shoulders, we all stand on the shoulders of a commitment of an unseen and maybe almost forgotten beginning. So I just want to acknowledge that this moment is a product of many, many others, and express gratitude and thanks for those who have blazed that path. So I want to thank my family, my daughter, if she's not watching Bluey somewhere, maybe watching this. It's tough competition, I'm not sure. But for me, an opportunity to share and reshare what basketball has been to me with my little one is a treasure. And finally, just thank you to the two gentlemen sitting to my right, to my left. Sid, thrilled to be on this journey with you. Michael, thank you so much for this opportunity and for the way in which you've shared the vision for what our next can be. It's a precious legacy that we have here, and I will commit to being as good of a caretaker and a steward, but also hopefully a visionary for what can be next.
Jamila, you talk about the standing on the shoulders. If I'm not mistaken, you're part of W history as the assister to the first bucket by Penny Toller. So this generation is also standing on your shoulders. So welcome. And fresh off a silver medal with USA Basketball's 3x3 women's team at the AmeriCup, and our very own Brittany Sykes, your new head coach, Sydney Johnson.
Thank you. Tough act to follow, but where to begin? First and foremost, I am a believer, and so I just want to thank the Lord for just literally every single day of my life. Just highs, lows, all under His grace to just be in this moment. I don't take that for granted. I want to thank Ted and his family for the indelible imprint that they've had on DC sports and our larger ownership group. Sheila has been a pioneer in many ways, and I appreciate the two of you and the larger ownership group affording me this opportunity to work and partner with Michael Winger, with John Thompson III, with Don Wolf, and my newest and best teammate in Jamila. We've already shared wonderful times together, and we're looking forward to the next, for what is in store for the Mystics and what we believe, quite honestly, in terms of the W as a whole. So I'm just overcome by the joy and excitement that I have in this moment to partner with these folks. There's former teammates of mine and coaches and players, USA Basketball, HD Intelligence. There are people like that. I can't name everyone, although I just did. But there are a few people that, if you allow me, I do want to, single out. My dad's been an amazing influence in my life. My mom, my godmother Sue, my two brothers who fought for me, fought me and fought for me. Lifelong friends, two of them, Steve and Eric, and my wife. She's my absolute soulmate. I love her dearly, and she's always been there for me. And we have three wonderful children, and Jalen and Julia and Gemma, and they know that their dad loves them just the way they are. And so I just want to acknowledge them, all those folks. If you'll bear with me a little bit, I will tell you that our players have been outstanding. Many of them welcoming us from halfway across the world, let alone Miami and a little bit closer. And so I thank you, and I can't wait for us to get on the court as a group together. Our staff has allowed us to hit the ground running. I thank you for your sacrifice. I thank you for your support. Our fans, We see you. We know how important 2019, we know what that meant to this organization. We want to add to that legacy. There's no question about it. But we also want to have, quite frankly, the best player care and development environment. We want to put our players first, and we welcome you in that because I know that you're rooting for them as we are. So we welcome you to continue to do so. And, last but not least, the media. I want to tell you something like from the heart. I'm a huge fan of this league. Like, I'm a huge fan of these players. And I encourage you to follow your passion in terms of illuminating their stories. All right, these are wonderful, wonderful athletes. And they have more to tell the world than just how well they can make a jump shot, how well they can dime someone up, how well they can go grab a rebound. And that's what I want to celebrate. And I want to partner with you all in doing that. So it's an open door. And I'm not only talking about Ariel. All right, I'm not only talking about Slim, Shakira, Steph, but players throughout the league. All right, a lot of people should know the story of Diamond to Shields. A lot of people should be talking about the sacrifices that Brittany Griner made, all right, and what her journey has been. How about the leadership of someone like Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier and what they're doing down in Miami? Like, we have to illuminate all of those stories. And so you will have a partner. You will have two partners. You'll have an organization that will welcome you with open arms to illuminate those stories. So I encourage you to do so, and just hit me up, all right? Thank you all for being here, and sorry for going on so long, but I'm excited. I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you all. Michael, in your opening remarks, you discussed when you think of players, it's a totality of more than just the athlete. Now that you've got your GM and your head coach in Jamila and Sydney, how will you look at that approach in developing them holistically, and what really stood out about both of these people that you wanted to bring them on board to add to that?
The holistic part is really just, I think, peeling back the facade of the athlete and seeing that this person spends so much of his or her time not playing basketball. And all of the things that go into anybody's life, your life, my life, their lives, only this moment that we're together are we seeing just a little smidge of each other's lives. But there's so much behind that none of us see. The same is true with our athletes. To Sid's point, like understanding that and pouring into that, telling those stories, that's how we get to know more of each other. But as it relates to why them, these two in particular have spent so much of their lives pouring into other people. And with little to no fanfare, they don't celebrate themselves, but countless people have become better humans, better athletes, better advocates because of them. And that was so incredibly important to us, that we could have leaders who understood that there's so much more to the athlete behind the jersey, behind the sneakers, and they have a proven track record, and they know the language, they know the right words to say. They're parents, they are advocates, and they have been their whole lives, their whole adult lives anyway. And that's what I think that W athletes want right now. I think that's probably what every young athlete wants, is somebody to just help them become better, not just on the floor but off, champion them, advocate for them, tell them the truth, and not look at the athlete as something from which we or they can extract something of value, performance, but rather just givers. And I think that athletes, for where they are in their extremely young lives, they need to be surrounded by givers. And Jamila and Sydney are maybe two of the greatest givers I've ever met.
Thank you. At this time, we will open it up to the media, both in person and on Zoom. We'll start with in person. If you can please wait for the mic to come to you, and once it has arrived, state your name, your affiliation, and directed your question, who it's to, please.
Hello, everybody. Kareem Copeland from the Washington Post. Congratulations. Nice meeting you. Jamila, can I start with you? You haven't had this front office experience in the W. You've been a player, had your law career and your time in the NBA. What was it about this job? Why is this now the right time? How have you approached this all as you're learning a new position?
First of all, Kareem, great to put a face to a name. Nice to meet you. Look forward to being on this journey with you. Thank you for the question. So yeah, you're absolutely right. First time in the seat in a front office, first time in the seat as a general manager, and I'll distill your question down to maybe why now. I think for me, what I saw in this opportunity is very much embedded in the words I think that Michael has shared thus far and that Sid has referenced thus far, which is that at the center of this opportunity is a foundational notion of understanding players as people. And to expound on that a little bit, this is an incredible game. It's an incredible game. I think what makes it an incredible game is that it's essentially a translation. The game is a translation of people, it's a translation of culture, it's a translation of a moment, and I think that's part of what makes it dynamic, is it is always changing because it's simply a reflection of the folks that are in the room and the way that we're doing our business. And if that's true, then what we're really talking about, today, Sid and I are sharing a little bit about who we are, where we come from, why we do it, right? But I think if we do our jobs right, we will recede. We should become less visible, and in that space should be our players and the mark that they want to make on this game, period. I think the WNBA has a historical DNA that is connected to players always being more than players. And I think, that's because we imagined that this league could exist before it existed. We imagined into space, right? We've created something where there was nothing. And I think somewhere somebody told me that that's actually the definition of a mystic, right? We believe in things that we can't quite see yet, and we do a lot of work to try to translate those things. And for me, much of my work in my career in different areas has been precisely about that. It's been about centering whoever it is that I'm working with in the room in that moment. It's been about doing more listening than talking to understand how they came to find themselves in that moment. And it's about figuring out how can I either build a skill or use a skill to advocate and animate that person with a narrative that helps support and develop and protect them for what they want and aspire to. So in that receding and in that disappearing in that space, then you have all this room to see the talent, the uniqueness, the creativity of other people, right? I get bored with myself after a while, right? So for me, this opportunity represents the chance to do that in the game of basketball, back in the WNBA, many decades later. But the reality is, I think it's simply a desire to listen and develop. And that's the kind of space that I would love to work with Sid and with Michael and our staff and our players in partnership to make sure that we all get that space to grow.
Christy Winter-Scott, Monumental Sports Network and Mystics color analyst. Sydney, this is for you. Tactically speaking, what can we expect to see on the court stylistically? And Jamila, how will you help accommodate that?
Yeah, great question. We want to play fast. That's something that I think just in terms of the modern era, and just being attacked oriented in terms of getting the ball down the court and putting pressure on defenses. When we settle into the middle and back into the shot clock, we really want a team-oriented style. I see so much talent up and down the roster. I see, championship teams like a Liberty, like a Vegas that, put so much pressure on you from all different spots. And so we want to emulate that in our way. Defensively, to be perfectly blunt, I like defense. We want to disrupt. We want to break people's rhythm. The thing that we have to be mindful of always is just our depth and our personnel. I'll share with you all, that Slim and Shakira are two wonderful players, and they were, our best duo as a group. Net rating like plus 11, but they missed 40 games between them. So all of your best laid plans of what I just laid out, that's what we want to do, but we have to have them available, in those performance moments, and we're going to work diligently to put them in position to do so.
Just following my coach's lead, I would say, he used the word freedom, freedom of movement. I think the style of play that also drives and celebrates a sense of creativity in our players. I think, for anybody who's watched us recently, we've got a collection of folks that are just simply really fun to watch and are exciting to watch. And I think in terms of support, I think freedom and creativity are outcomes of an environment that I think privileges, at least two things, but among them, competence and accountability. And so I think the style of play, in many ways, I think should be reflected in just the way that we're building and running an organization. So a sense of freedom and development, a sense of creativity, and I would say a sense that there's room for both our organization, our staff, and also our players to show up as individuals in their uniqueness, but to also show up as a collective. And that dance between preserving the ability of people to show up in who they are and to thrive, and to simultaneously find a way to orchestrate that into a collective that is going to win and is going to bring us championships, but is going to do it in a way that reflects those values. I think there's a synergy between what Sid just described and how we're going to try to run the organization.
Hi, everyone. Tyler Byram, Monumental Sports Network. My question will be for Michael. You just went through this transformation process with the Wizards not too long ago. What are some of the differences that you see with this team and what the organization has as they begin this new path forward?
The differences between the Mystics and the Wizards?
Yeah, in terms of like the process of getting where you said you want the organization to be 10 years down the line and what you envision.
I think the one difference that strikes me the most is just timing. In other words, we tackled the Wizards first, and so now we have 20 months of experience under our belts in changing a lot of the infrastructure that we wanted to change, and we learned a lot of things on the fly that we can implement with the Mystics. And we have shared services, so a lot of the updates that we made for the Wizards, so to speak, also just inherently benefit the Mystics by virtue of sharing those resources with the Mystics.
Hi, Heather McDonough, NBC4, for Jamila and Coach Johnson. We'll start with Jamila. We heard you guys, Michael, talk about the 90%, 10%. A lot of what is judged is the 10% of what we see on the court. We've seen a lot of these moves that a lot of teams are making over the last few weeks. You guys are still getting settled in. How can you keep up with that, and how quickly can the Mystics get back to where they used to be? We'll start with Jamila.
Yeah, well, I'll just say we're digging in, and certainly have seen some movement around the league. I would share that some movement isn't necessarily instantly visible, and in that sense, we've certainly been studying our group, studying the league, and I think what we're trying to do is build a kind of sustained excellence, and yes, we want to win championships. Yes, we want to win games. But I think we see that as an outcome of building of an environment and a culture that can sustain that kind of excellence over time. And so everything we do is driven by an approach which is, yes, we want to show up now and we want to show up later. And I think some of that is building into the sort of institutional capacity of our team to move, a kind of flexibility and an ability to shape-shift in certain ways. I think that can get reflected in the depth of your roster. It can get reflected in the different skills that you're pulling together. I think it can also be reflected in embracing a timeline that makes sense for where you are. And this game is moving and has always moved incredibly quickly. And I would say one of the things that we've talked about is, on the one hand, there's, you referenced get back to where we were. I would put that a little bit differently. I would say get to where we're going. And that is going to inherently look different. The excellence, we want that, certainly, and that is shared with the roots that this organization has. But right now we're building our wings. And what that looks like and how we're trying to do that is going to have multiple timelines.
Yeah, you can see why she's my newest and best teammate right now. Just because every time we spend time together, just like how we see this project, if you will, this challenge, there's just so much alignment. And, all that I would share with Jamila's words is, of course we want to win basketball games. I mean, it's just like, everything about me loves this game. And frankly, when we're keeping score, I want to be the one with more points than the other team. But at the end of the day, we want this to be a home. Like, we want this to be a home, where players can find themselves and really want to be here, And I think in doing so, perennial success will follow. You got to have good players. You got to have them healthy. You got to have them competitive. But we also want some joy and togetherness. And again, players to be able to be themselves in this moment, all of themselves. And so with that, we know the game, like success will come, but it's about doing that year in and year out. And that's where we aim to go.
Real quick, how much joy you get watching Aaliyah Edwards and Unrivaled?
A whole lot of joy. And listen, Shakira repped for that first day as well, and I was texting them, and I think they're having a lot of fun down there. But it's been awesome, and again, what an environment. But we want to build on that, and have them come home and show it off in a Mystics uniform.
Get it, Lily.
To the GM, to the GM and coach, Chick Hernandez from WSA 9. Excuse me. You've been through this building before, player, coaches. You've seen the fan base. What did you know coming into this, and how do you stay connected to this fan base? What are those plans?
Yeah, great question. And I think I'll reference the 90-10 real quick. I think we want to be a catalyst. I think for ideas, for innovation, for impact as we pursue our basketball excellence. And I think if I were to name two pieces of that are absolutely critical, one being that we do that in a way that celebrates and elevates the humanity of our players. And I think you guys get that by now. But I think we also, we are grounded in the DC roots and culture that we stand amid. And I think the bridges that we can build between our team and the community, the ways that we can create meaningful partnerships so that the many communities of DC and the DMV can see themselves reflected in what we're doing, but also how we're doing. And so I know that we readily invite that kind of partnership with not only our fans who are there to see a basketball game, but are there to be a part of something and to maybe leverage some of that energy, some of that open space, can see what it looks like to have dimensions of their identities affirmatively celebrated, whether that's through our players or through our coaches, or what our halftimes look like. And so one of the things I know we're really excited about is that's a year-round effort. right? That's not just a seasonal effort. That's about being grounded in space during the season, during the off season. And so that is an area that we're incredibly, incredibly excited to build towards.
I would just add that we want to add the Mystics to the list of teams that the DMV has rallied around for years now, right? I mean, I hail from the M in the DMV, okay? Right down the road, Towson, Maryland is where I grew up many of my years. There's so many good players, so many good teams, so many great coaches from this area of the country, And so whether we're singing the praises of the Wizards or Georgetown, maybe the Terps, I'm just saying. I might have lost about half the room. The Mystics, you know what I mean? And there's a pride, like this is where ballers come from. This is where great coaches have been. This is where great teams have added to the story, the full, rich story of basketball. I mean, my dad's, grew up in Indiana, healthy tradition. DMV's not coming short to anybody in that regard. And we have a challenge and an opportunity and work to do to add the Mystics to that, and like we said, perennially, year in and year out, that people are celebrating the stories of our individual players and our team as a whole.
Gio Delfa with NBC4 and Telemundo 44. This is both for Jamila and Sydney. What's number one on the list of priorities for this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think number one is to step, honestly, in multiple places at once. I mean, we're building a roster. We're going to compete this year. We're also building that environment that we keep referring to. And I think to a word that Sid just used, that word home, I think what we want in this incredible basketball city is for people to choose us, right? And to do that, we've got to choose us first. And so I think on that list of ways that we can do that is we want to focus on building an environment of development, and that includes highlighting what we've got, which are incredible resources, great coaching, incredible support, and as we do that, also give voice to the spaces that we see opportunity to build around. And so I think that culture of development is very high on the list.
I'd offer up that, just to establish our 90-10, like just say be who we say we're going to be, day in and day out, that our players, our staff, everyone connected with the Mystics understands that we're putting our players first and that the experience is near and dear to us. And oh, by the way, when that 10% rolls around, like we're ready to roll, So I think just establishing who we are as an organization and making sure that we live by that day in and day out, I think that's absolutely critical in year one and frankly every year. But that's, to answer your question, I definitely believe that's where we want to start.
At this time, we'll now move to Zoom.
Thank you, Megan. As stated before, if you could please state your name, your affiliation, and who your question is directed to. We'll start with Jen.
Hi, everybody. Jen Hatfield, Mystics beat reporter at The Next. My question's for both Jamila and Sydney. Great to meet you both virtually. Jamila, how are you kind of approaching college scouting, given that you were hired, partway through the college season, and you guys have 2 top 6 picks? And then Sydney, relatedly, you just came from a team that had 2 first-round picks that were really successful rookies, and kind of what do you take from that experience into this season?
Yeah, so we are obviously aware of our current draft position, also our future draft positions. Anytime you step in the gym, you're looking at multiple classes at once. And so I would say, one, our approach is right now to make sure that we're able to cover off on the layers of that investigation of players. So working with Sid and the rest of our staff to make sure that we're in the spaces that we want to be, targeting the players we want to target, but also being in the spaces where we're looking at, that next class, that 27 class as well. I would say the approach is, also multidimensional, right? We're looking at how players are showing up on the court. We're also looking at how they have performed historically. We're also looking at who they are. We're looking for fit in terms of the values that we've got, what we want our locker room to look like, and all the time imagining how all those pieces, of course, are going to be moving together.
I would say our efforts are pretty robust in terms of like what we aim to do, and not only college scouting, but international scouting. And as you referenced, Jen, 2 rookies in Chicago that made an immediate impact, and I think we're going to see more of that as we move forward. There's so many good players playing in college right now and internationally. So our eye will be on growing emerging talent. At the same time, player development is a thing in this league. And, you look at someone like Emily Enksler or Sika Kone, what they have to offer, and their brightest years are ahead of them as well. So there's a lot to juggle, but we'll certainly have an eye on, the younger players, draft-eligible players, because we realize they're making an increasing impact. Maybe unlike some years past, there's some stars that are hitting right away, like a Casey and Angel that you referenced.
Alexa?
Hi, all. Congratulations and thanks for spending some time with us today. Question, I guess this is probably more for Jamila and Michael, if you want to weigh in. With returning mostly the same roster as last year, do you feel like a realistic benchmark for 2025's team is to get back to the playoffs and try and get there? And then also just given the fact that 2026 is going to be such a blank slate, I know that's probably hard to think too far ahead, but with the new CBA and everyone essentially hitting free agency, what priorities do you all have when it comes to just like building out an attractive place for players to come when everything happens next year too?
Yeah, I think I'll take the last question first, maybe in terms of what does it mean to build out a space that players want to be at. I'll just name, I think, a couple of the areas that are priorities for the current WNBA players. I think a lot of the basics still really matter. I think that players want to come somewhere where they think they can arrive, and when they walk out, which hopefully they don't do, they are better. They want to come into a space where they can grow both professionally and personally, and certainly their on-court game. So I think they're looking for a deep commitment to player development on the court. I think they're looking for opportunities to be visible in who they are as players. We've got so many creative talents and passions in our players that live outside of the court that are very much connected up to the viability and how robust our basketball business is. And so I think coming to a place that can support those aspirations as well and create opportunities for that visibility is important to players. I think, some of the fundamentals, excellent care in the health from a physical standpoint and also from a mental health standpoint. We'll have a clear focus in both of those areas for that holistic care that we know players depend on for their support. And I think coming to a place where, and I'm talking young players and more veteran players alike, I think one of the things that can happen to players in this league and others in professional sports is you come in and you're known for a certain skill or you're known for a certain dimension of your personality, and that can get stamped on you, and then that's who you are. And everything you do from there is then judged either how is it connected up to that initial moment. And the reality is, like all of us, players evolve, right? We talk about player development, but alongside player development, there has to be room for players to think, I can be a different person, a different player in a season, in 5 seasons. And we really want to embrace that because I think as Sid mentioned earlier, a commitment to young players coming in or to youth is only worth as much as we're able to actually help that youth develop. And so I think those are some of the areas that we are looking to and that we know make this market an incredibly attractive place. And speaking of place, I mean, this is a global city for what in the WNBA is a global game. If you look at the players who are coming into our league, if you look at the connectivity between our players born here in the U.S. With places around the world, I mean, you could not have a better place, a better market to embrace a game that has that range of diversity and reach. And I think that's really where we're focused on building. So I would put that stamp on expectations for this year as well, as we move into training camp and take a look at players who have been both honing their games overseas. And, we know Aaliyah's one-on-one game is ready to put on blast alongside Kira. But we know folks are coming back into the building, different players already. And so I anticipate that what we build and how we play this year is also going to reflect, that off-season improvement as well.
We have time for one last question. We will go to Jackie.
Hi all, Jackie Powell with the Next and Locked On Women's Basketball. Nice to virtually meet you all and congratulations on the new positions. For Jamila and Michael, actually, so Sydney mentioned Slim and Shakira and how together on the floor they had a very high plus minus, and he mentioned how they've dealt with injuries in the past and they haven't been able to be on the floor as often. So I just want to know how you both are looking to improve the player experience and give these players more resources that can help maybe make them less injury prone as you all move forward.
I'm not entirely sure that more is the answer to helping athletes stay on the floor. To the extent that athletes are suffering injuries in game or in practice, that is what it is. I would submit that there's certainly nothing organizationally that historically or on a going forward basis will contribute to player health other than positively. And so to keep our athletes on the floor, you have to give them the best care, which we do and we will continue to do. And sometimes, it is a contact sport played at the highest level with the greatest athletes in the world. And there are collisions, there are changes of direction, there are a lot of forces exerted upon the human body that may or may not have been intended in those moments. And so injuries occur, but to the extent that our focus internally is keeping our athletes healthy, Jamila mentioned there's physical health and there's mental health and there's everything in between. And that is part of, as Megan asked earlier, that's part of the holistic environment that we're creating for our athletes. And so under no circumstance, whether it's with us or any other team, we don't bemoan injuries, we don't bemoan health concerns. That's part of the game. I mean, athletes, they get hurt all the time. That's what they sign up to do. That's the risk.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, if you had the answer to that question, there's a whole lot of other coaches who'd want to know what you came up with. I do think it's fair. I just would say, echo what Michael said. I mean, injuries are part of the game. It is what it is. And we're excited to welcome back two talents that we didn't have on the court as much as we'd like to have had last year, but that's all part of it. So as Michael said, no bemoaning and more of onward, like what's next? Let's get to that.
Before we conclude today's events, on behalf of myself and Monumental Sports and Entertainment and Monumental Basketball, we want to send our deepest condolences to the families of the tragic aviation accident 2 weeks ago. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning, both in person and on Zoom. At this time, I would like to welcome Ms. Sheila, John, and Zach up to the podium to take a photo.
Another wonderful moment being captured, or about to be captured here. You see Sheila Johnson, part of the ownership department on Monumental Basketball on the Mystics side, and of course Zach Leonsis, the president of Monumental Sports Network, along with Sydney Johnson, Jamila Wideman, and of course Michael Winger, all part of the new leadership for the Washington Mystics. A great day, including this moment right here that will certainly be seen throughout the future here in Mystics basketball. This picture signifying the future of the WNBA and the nation's capital, along with John Thompson III joining the picture as well. A tremendous day, Meg McDonald.
I just have chills listening to some of the words that were coming out of their mouths, really referencing a 90-10 ratio and how important not just developing players on the court is, but developing them off the court. And I love what Michael Winger said as well. It's a global league, it's a global city, and the time is now where the WNBA is really thriving.
Yeah, I love the fact that they are leaning into the future of this game and this league, especially with the players, because that's really what it's all about. And so many great things were said about leaning into the person.
Yes.
I know it's easy for us as fans and broadcasters to fall in love with what we see about the player, but they are really serious about investing in and making sure that the whole person is well received and well taken care of when they step through the doors as a Washington Mystic.
And you know what Sydney Johnson said, referencing this is a place of home. We want DC to be home, and we want DC and the DMV to be a location where ballers come from. I thought that was a great line because these WNBA players are not just playing for themselves.
Right.
They're playing for the kids watching them.
Yes,
and
that's
is
it.
a global phenomenon that there's so much excitement surrounding this league right now.
One of the things I think we can appreciate before we close out is the passion you hear from Jamila, a former player in this league, now transitioning through her career, now to a GM, and of course Sydney as a coach, a part of this DMV area, knowing the rich, fertile ground that we have when it comes to coaches and players, the synergy that these two are about to employ in the front office and courtside for these players, I'm already excited about it because I know what's going to happen. I know that they will invest into the players, they will invest into each other, and really making this an environment, to your point, that feels like home, that you want to make it feel good when you come to work.
And I think the word synergy is such a great word to describe what we just saw go down over the last 30 minutes. We had Sydney Johnson reference, 2019 is a legacy and we want to get back there, but also in the same breath, Jamila is going, it's important to recognize where we've been, but we want to continue moving forward and pushing the boundaries. And of course the draft, and of course they were asked about what that future looks like, and they'll get there. Give them a minute. They've been here for 5 minutes, but it's really exciting and I know the future's bright.
A great day to be a Washington Mystics fan, of course, a part of the Monumental Basketball family. Megan McPhee, Megan McDonald, and Wes Hall all on site today for this introductory press conference. Welcome to the new era of Mystics basketball on Monumental Sports Network.